In this video, you will hear Leonardo DiCaprio's quotes and thoughts and how he feels about life. Unlike many actors, my destiny was not determined from childhood. I grew up in a slum in Hollywood and I thought to myself, I'm going to grow up crazy. Despite the fact that I was born in Hollywood, until the age of 13 I seriously believed that being an actor, something akin to Freemasonry, something that is in the blood and is transmitted only through the genes. Somehow, it never even occurred to me that you can just hire an agent and go to the audition. I don't like school. They make you focus on things you don't want to know. At school, nobody paid much attention to me. At least, not until I started acting like a brainless idiot with a broken arm out of necessity. The first kiss was the most disgusting experience of my life. That girl managed to put so much saliva in my mouth that afterwards, when it was all over, thank God, I was walking and spitting for probably a couple of blocks. I guess it's hard to call me a stubborn person, but the facts say otherwise. The year I turned 15, I went to probably 160 different auditions and tryouts, but I didn't get a single role. I always liked my mother's attitude to my success. I remember that when I suddenly became famous, she came into my room every morning and said, "Roll out of bed, do your exercises, and stop being lazy. You sleepy little worm." The joy of fame passes pretty quickly, and you realize that the main reward is not that you are suddenly recognized on the street by every moth, but that your films will remain after you die. Everywhere I go today, people will stare at me, rolling their eyes. I still can't figure out if that's how they show they recognize me, or if they just think I'm dressed like a faggot. I don't think the paparazzi should be hated. Sure, it's an invasion of privacy. But if there's one thing that really makes me sick about Hollywood stars, it's that they can talk for hours about how they hate the paparazzi, yet are always happy when the photos in the yellow magazines suddenly show them as handsome with a lush mane. I suspect it's pretty hard to be single. I like the most ordinary women, the ones you see on the street every day, college girls, waitresses, that sort of thing. Very often I show up at a party with some girl with whom I have nothing in common except simple friendship. I think it's a very simple idea, but I can't get it across to anyone. Just because you go to the movies with a girl doesn't mean you necessarily want to fuck her. More than anything, I want to be the irresponsible jerk that many of my friends are. But when I think about the consequences of such behavior, I realize I can hardly afford it. The last thing I'd want is to turn into a typical fat Hollywood bastard with money. I grew up penniless, and that's when I was really happy. I wondered for a long time if I could play Romeo. But then I saw Keanu Reeves in Much Ado About Nothing, and decided that if he can play a Shakespearean film, then I do not have to worry. I think of Rivera Phoenix, the American actor who was replaced by DiCaprio in The Basketball Diaries, after he died at the age of 23 of a drug overdose. Every time I'm offered a role, Esquire, I would never talk anybody out of drugs. If you tell a person no several times in a row, you're only pushing them closer and closer. If someone had asked me who I'd like to talk to who's already dead, I'd have said Orson Welles when he was making Citizen Kane. But journalists never ask such questions. It seems to me that America's main problem is that it tries to set its own order in countries about which it knows absolutely nothing. It's hard to surprise me. The most amazing thing I've seen happened in Africa. Two young lions were choking on a dead wildebeest. And then the little lion cubs emerged from the bush. And then the older lions parted, letting the smaller ones get to the better bits. And all together they clung to the carcass, like ants who found a caramel someone had spit out. Africa is one of the last places where I still manage to remain anonymous. The most surprising thing is that I didn't think about Africa's problems after watching the news, but after songs by Kanye West American hip-hop figure. The Squire, after the movie Blood Diamond, a 2006 film starring DiCaprio about the diamond business against the backdrop of the war in Sierra Leone. Esquire, I became cautious about diamonds. I hardly remember the last time I bought them. Most likely I bought them for my mother, because she was the only person I could buy a diamond for. But then, unfortunately, it didn't occur to me to find out, before buying, what the history of the stone was. I like to think that a documentary has no director because its director is God. More than anything, I want to be the irresponsible jerk that many of my friends are. But when I think about the consequences of such behavior, I realize I can hardly afford it. I spent quite a lot of time in Africa and saw the problems that people face there. After that, when I returned home, I realized that I no longer wanted to hear about any of the problems that bothered people in my circle. I don't understand why I can't allow myself to make male friends without rumors flying around that I was shagging someone in the ass. Fame is like a universal pass. Wherever you want to go, that's where you go. The important thing to remember is that every time you buy something, you are 100% in favor of the policy of the company that made it. I watch movies endlessly, and I'm blown away by what's already been done in movies. I think the biggest problem today is how to get people to consume less. I try to be careful about the world around me. I have solar panels on my roof. I have a hybrid car, a Toyota Prius, which emits 75% less carbon dioxide than a normal car. I bought the same kind of car for my mother, my father, and his new wife. But I know it's not enough. For example, I don't have a compost pit. Taking care of the environment isn't always about wandering into rooms where no one is around and turning off the lights when you visit someone. But that's a good place to start. I think I dreamed of being a biologist when I was a kid, even though it wouldn't say that in the papers. I watch movies endlessly, and I'm overwhelmed by what has already been done in movies. If I believed all the garbage they wrote about me, I'd probably be in a hospital bed by now, with horny psychiatrists circling around. The most amazing thing about me is that people talk about me like I'm a faggot. But I'm not a fag. I don't want to talk about how happy I was to work with Scorsese. No matter what I say about it, it's going to look like a stupid journalistic cliche. Once on set, we were sitting with the dudes in the middle of the desert, and my scene was supposed to go on. But the sun was going down too fast and we didn't make it, and behind us were jeeps loaded with equipment waiting for us and helicopters circling in the sky. I remember it was at this very moment that some great thing occurred to me, but I still can't remember what it was. I love it when people say, "Great, let's shoot that." I don't have any political aspirations, and I'm scared to death of people who do. It wasn't that long ago that filmmaking turned 100 years old. But if you think about it, in those 100 years cinema hasn't done even 1/100th of what could have been done. I don't understand why so few people make movies today. After all, anyone can now buy a digital camera and set up a film studio in the garage. If you make a film in order to say something to the world without trying to entertain them in the process, it's a waste of time. I don't have any political aspirations, and I'm scared to death of people who do. I recently turned 30, and I realized that in today's world, that's the age when you realize, on the one hand, that you're truly an adult, but, on the other hand, you still want to fool around. The important thing to remember is that whenever you buy something, you are 100% in support of the policy of the company that made that thing. I will never discourage anyone from taking drugs. If you say no to a person several times in a row, you're only pushing them closer and closer. Overall, I like the way the world works. I think the biggest problem today is the problem of how to get people to consume less. It's hard to surprise me. The most striking thing I've seen happened in Africa. 2 young lions were choking on a dead gnu antelope. And then the little lion cubs emerged from the bush. And then the older lions parted, letting the smaller ones get to the better bits. And all together they clung to the carcass, like ants that found a caramel someone had spit out. I don't understand why I can't afford to make male friends without the rumor that I'm gay creeping up. I don't understand why everyone is so eager to make me look gay. Taking care of the environment doesn't always mean that when you go to visit someone, you start wandering into rooms where no one's there and turn off the lights. But you can start there, too. It's easy to believe the hype that's being created around you. Who knows? You might find me in an asylum in a few years. If you just think about the concept of the movie. Oh my God, when I first heard that Quentin was going to change the fact of Hitler's death. What? Is he out of his mind? But he managed to present it all in an absolutely stunning way. I don't have many fears: sharks, aliens, and global warming. I seem to have some kind of special attraction to movies with a high concentration of violence in the frame. To a certain extent, I've already lost all sensitivity to those kinds of scenes, so they don't move me on their own. I was wild and crazy and didn't suffer from it like some people do now, when they try to keep a good face on a bad game and thereby discredit themselves. I didn't care what anybody thought of me. I will say that Brad and I had fun working together. It's been great. I mean, we started our careers around the same time, in the 90 seconds. I grew up right here in Hollywood, this particular part of Los Angeles, but just not in a well-to-do movie family like many of my colleagues. But still proud of the role and my involvement with such a fantastic team under Cameron. Since then, I've only filmed with the very best directors, and I do so quite deliberately. You know, I remember then finding this book about Howard Hughes, billionaire, genius, director, aviation pioneer and innovator, passionate and insane personality. Always strive for the truth. Thank you for watching. Love and good luck to you.